All right, this is the final part 6 of the invisible stigmata. So I was brought to this place of Calvary where they crucified Jesus completely. Okay, so this is where Jesus showed me they threw him on the ground. That's when he had my arms extended, and then I felt like they were pulling my arm, my right arm, and they turned my hand and they started to place the nail, and Jesus' head did this. And he looked at them, on the person that was about to nail them into his wrist. And when they nailed it into his wrist, the loudest shriek, I tell you, came from me. And it was a male with a Middle Eastern accent. It was bad, okay? My head started to tremble just like that, as if my head was on something, okay? And then they did it to the next one. They pulled that arm, and then they jammed those nails like 2-3 times into his wrist in the left arm. Same thing happened. Loud shriek, cries, groans, okay? And then they flipped the cross. I felt them flipping, moving, all of that, okay? And then they pulled his feet, so my feet were positioned to receive the nails. And then they nailed it into his feet. Shriek of pain, loud shriek, painful grunts and groans, okay? Then they put him into the hole of the ground, and then he was like this. And when his body shifted from the cross falling into the hole, my body did that, okay? My hands were extended, and they were shaking, like the nerves were damaged or something. And he was in a lot of pain, and he was just a groaning and moaning in pain and wincing in pain. And he was looking around, and he said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Okay, he said that part. And then he looked over to the thieves. One of them was mocking Jesus. The other one said, "Lord, remember me in your kingdom when you go." And Jesus said, "Surely I tell you that you will be with me in paradise." That was what he was saying through me. Okay. And then he shifted his head again while I was still outstretched. And then he looked up, shaking in agonizing pain, said, "Father, why have you forsaken me?" And then next thing comes, I'm still on the cross with him, and he's groaning and moaning in pain. And then he said, "It is finished." And then after he said it is finished, and he said it slowly, and then after he said that, he looked up and said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And the next thing you know, my body relaxed. My head, my eyes rolled to the back of my head. My head slumped and tilted, and my hands fell quickly. And that was the end of the stigmata. It was completely finished.